Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're going to wait a few moments to give people time to log on and join us. Welcome, welcome. We're still having many people join, so we'll just wait a little longer. Okay, we are going to get started. Good evening and welcome to Hawk Mountain Sanctuary's Stay at Home Speaker Series. Today's program is, So What is a Raptor? With Dr. J.F. Therrien, Hawk Mountain Senior Scientist and Graduate Study Director.
Hi, everyone.
Thanks for joining us, JF. My name is Jamie Dawson. I'm the Director of Education at Hawk Mountain Sanctuary, and thank you to everyone in our audience for joining us this evening as well. As you may know, Hawk Mountain is the world's very first refuge for birds of prey, and we continue to work hard to be leaders in raptor conservation, science, and education locally and globally around the world. Hawk Mountain is a private nonprofit, and membership is the lifeblood of our organization. To all of our members, thank you. Thank you so much for all of your support. We could not do what we do without you. And if you're joining us this evening and you're not a member, we hope that you consider becoming one in the future. Hawk Mountain hopes that everyone remains safe and healthy during these times of COVID challenges, and we are so excited to offer our local and global community a variety of free virtual programming. As always, Hawk Mountain greatly appreciates and depends on donations. Just so everyone is aware, today's program is being recorded. The video will then be accessible on Hawk Mountain's YouTube channel as a continued resource. We also have a link on our website directly connecting you to our YouTube channel. At any point during today's program, viewers may submit their questions through the Q&A feature on the Zoom platform, and we've designated time at the end of the program to take some questions from the audience. And we are absolutely thrilled that Dr. J.F. Therrien is joining us to share with us the new and improved definition of a raptor, sharing highlights from his recent publication from 2020. And before we go further, I'd like to take a moment and share some of JF's background experience with our audience. JF grew up in Sherbrooke, Canada, about 30 minutes north of the border with Vermont, sorry. He was an academic trainee at Hawk Mountain in 2002 and holds a bachelor's degree, master's degree, and PhD degree in biology. JF is the Senior Scientist and Graduate Study Director at Hawk Mountain Sanctuary, where he works on various aspects of raptor conservation science, such as satellite tracking of peregrine falcons, turkey vultures, snowy owls, rough-legged hawks, as well as monitoring American kestrel breeding populations and the monitoring of North American migratory raptors passing over the sanctuary. What a cool job you have, JF. So congratulations on that. How did your career become focused on raptor biology and conservation?
That's a very good question. Thanks for asking. I was always curious and interested about ecology in general. And obviously, when you start working with raptors, well, for one thing, they're exciting. They have this nice place at the top of food webs, and just their presence affect the other parts of the community. So I've always been drawn to that predation, prey type of things going on in ecology. So raptors were just have been fascinating me since childhood.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. So I have to ask you, what is your favorite aspect about working at Hawk Mountain?
Well, working at Hawk Mountain is great because I would say the diversity of things that we do on a normal day. So right now, tonight, we're doing a Zoom conference about what is a raptor, and we're teaming up and joining people. And we heard from all over the world are attending this Zoom talk right now. So very exciting work. And tomorrow we could be out tracking kestrels in the valley here. and conducting research elsewhere around the globe, talking with and collaborating with trainees all over the place. So it's a never-ending diversity of action and activity that actually excites me the most.
Thank you so much for sharing. All right, JF, we are ready to learn about exactly what makes a raptor and to learn more about your recent publication that modifies the very definition of a raptor. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining and attending this talk. We're gonna have a little some time for questions at the end as well. So I'm gonna share my screen quickly here, and probably will stop my video actually, just to help with the flow. All right, and so it could be. I don't know if you would say it's odd to be asking this question for us working at Hawk Mountain. I mean, I've been here as senior scientist and researcher for almost 10 years now. And the sanctuary has been conducting research on raptors for over 85 years. And now we're asking, what is a raptor? So the question stemmed, and it came up with discussions with colleagues of us around the world, actually, to probably it was time to define clearly what is a raptor. The reason for it being that you would ask a bunch of different people, you would get different answers. As an example, if you ask my son what is a raptor, well, this is the kind of thing he comes up with. Obviously, he's learning from it. But if you ask my neighbor, well, he has a different take on what is a raptor. If I ask my brother, well, he thinks basketball. So obviously, in the birding community, none of those answers actually are what we are looking into. But it comes to a point that we need to define clearly the group we're studying. The reason why we needed a clear definition was because the term is used profusely in legislations. There are laws and agreements locally in states and provinces in Canada, across borders, multinational agreements. We have conservation societies, just like Hawk Mountain, that target their actions and their efforts to a specific group. So all those things, laws, agreements, society, management action and efforts and plans come with sometimes using those words, raptors or birds of prey. So for the definition, birds of prey are a synonymous of raptors. So they're meaning the same thing. They're the same birds. So the main reason why we needed a clear definition was to be able to say this species is in and this species is not. So when we look at laws, legislation, and agreements, we know what species we're talking about, what species we're going to devote our efforts for conservation. Back in the root of the name, the etymology of raptor, this is derived from Latin. So rapt meaning to size. And it's no surprise that the traditional definition of raptor has been using morphology, the feet, with which raptor species actually size their prey. So morphology is not, it has been traditionally the one way to decide if a species is a raptor. So using the curved talons of their feet, the curved beak to cut open flesh, and keen eyesight that are typical characteristics of raptors. Well, obviously, if you're a birder, you're looking closely at those pictures, and you kind of see that the morphology itself cannot be enough to be super precise. And here you got those feet; they actually belong to a swallow. The beak here is a parrot, and the eyes here are of a duck. So when we look at the spectrum of curved talons and powerful feet, well, it doesn't only pertains to a specific group that we traditionally call raptors. And the thing is the same for beaks and most even more surprisingly for eyes. So eyesight, the acute eyesight, the number of cones and sticks in the eyes of species has been all over the place in raptors, but mammals and other bird species. So it's not easy to use only those three anatomical characteristics to decide if a species is a raptor or not. So following this, what was traditionally considered as raptors are the following. So hawks, eagles, falcons, and caracaras. They're huge groups. They include as well ospreys, harriers, and kites. But basically, those are the main groups that were associated with raptors until recently. So I'm drawing a line here because all those species above the line have always been considered raptors. There've never been a time that those species were argued to be in or out of the raptor family, or raptor group, I should say. Now, the following, below the line, were actually sometimes included, sometimes not. Owls have been kept out of the raptors, vultures, in and out, shrikes, ravens have been included. And the reason for it is mainly for some of those species. So the daily schedule. So obviously, when you look at this little screech owl, you say, wait, what? I'm not a raptor just because I'm active at night? So that obviously the little screech owl doesn't agree with this. And following this, we try to make it clear why sometimes raptors only targeted the diurnal one and not including the nocturnal one, when we know that they share pretty much every other characteristics of raptors. Vultures oftentimes were left out as well because they didn't have the stronger feet and they were mostly scavenging. But yeah, recent evidence from DNA and genetics has been shown to say that vultures are actually very closely related to other auks and eagles and the like. Now, what do we do with shrikes? They have a somewhat curved bill. They have keen eyesight. They prey on vertebrate prey, and they're known actually to be able to carry some of those prey around with their feet. So are they raptors? Should they be considered raptors because they're acting as raptors in ecosystem? What about some of the corvids, in the pasturing groups, such as ravens? They're cliff nesters. They interact with raptors all the time. They can share a diet that's similar to raptors in some cases, but yet, what about their ancestry? What about their genetics? So when we start talking about it, it was one of the Raptor Research Foundation meeting a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago. People started to talk and say, well, maybe we need a definition. Maybe we need to be clear. What makes a raptor and what is not a raptor? And the definition should include the morphology, but not only the morphology, it should include the ecology, the role that those species play in ecosystem and their lifestyle. Are they a raptorial lifestyle or not? And lastly, one of the biggest thing we are trying to, we added here was to use the phylogeny, so the ancestry, the genetics behind those species, the relatedness, how close together are they compared to other bird species? So when we team up, there was a bunch of people from the Peregrine Fund, from Hawk Mountain, from Hawkwatch International, universities as well. So we sat and discussed and had plenty of rounds of discussions about the topic. And we came out with this as the main result. So basically, all those species that we know as raptors in the gray square in the middle here come from the same ancestors a long time ago, obviously. And I hope you can see my mouse here. So they're coming from the subclass Telluravis that's separated in two, which in one of them contains what we usually call diurnal raptors, so the hawks, eagles, and harriers and ospreys. and falcons and caracaras on the other side. So all of those come from the same ancestors. And same for owls. They're closely related to Accipitriform, and the New World vultures as well are in that class. Now, one thing comes up right away when you look at it is that less known order here, the Carriamiforms, which are the South American relative of the Sagittary bird from Africa. So the Sagittary bird from Africa is actually here in the Accipitriforms, but then it has a very similar species in South America that I'll present right here that looks like that. So curved beak, sharp talons, keen eyesight. Their ancestors are the same as other raptors, and they look very similar to that other species that we're more familiar with. So at the end of all the discussions and analysis that we did, we came up with the conclusion that Seremias are actually part of that Raptor group, and there's no reason to leave them out of them. Now, those are the maps distribution range. So those are the range for the two species, the Seremias down in South America, and then the Sagittary bird in Africa. So they're actually grassland, open country species. They walk around and pounce on prey like snakes and other vertebrates that they can find in the grasslands. So very similar habits than the African relative. Now, when we actually confronted the Seremia and I mean, asking that species if it felt like it belonged, well, it came running at us, and we kind of, I mean, obviously realized that it was a raptor. And then, well, obviously, if you ask the snake, he would say the same. So we came up with the fact that Seremias are part of the Raptor family, group, sorry. So all in all, this is what you, if you're interested, I recommend you guys to go and read the paper. It's really accessible, available. It's open access on the web from the Journal Raptor Research. We listed all those groups of bird that have been considered potentially be part of the Raptor group, and looking at all the characteristics. So the first three are the morphometric, morphology, anatomy, the eyes, the talons, and the beak. And as you move towards the right, you have the predatory habits. Are they feeding? Are they killing for their main source of diet, of their food resources? Are they diurnal? Are they playing a raptor role in the community, in the ecological community? And lastly, do they have that raptor ancestor, the land birds from the same raptorial ancestor? So when you look at all those category and check marks, and everyone for each one of them, you see that auks and eagles, well, obviously are part of raptors. Falcons qualify for all of that too. Caracaras, although some species are mostly scavenging species, they still have and share all other characteristics of raptors. Owls, obviously, just beside the fact that they're not diurnal, but all the rest makes them part of the Raptor group, such as Old World vultures, New World vultures, and Seremias. So this is where the cutoff is made, where shrikes, ravens, cormorants, or gulls, jaegers, and warblers are out of that group. Obviously, there are exceptions. Obviously, those are from groups and orders and families. There always will be species that might be in a grayer zone, but because their ancestors, and I want to put the emphasis here, as their raptor ancestry, the genetics behind it makes them part of the raptor group, just because they're from that same lineage. So obviously, like everything we do in science, this definition could change if we would to learn from different methods, from advanced genetics, that something that we use is actually no longer valid. right now, according to the best of knowledge that we have on the topic, this is what we came up with. And thanks to our outreach coordinator who designed this nice image that shows, just like on a tree, what we consider raptors here, picture on top, the 5 top groups, and some of those branches that I've separated from the raptorial grade before, such as kingfishers or parrots and warblers and passerines. So that's pretty much what the paper's about. Like I said, I recommend everyone to go and check it out. If you want a copy, you can email me and I'll send you a PDF as well. And I think I'll stop right here and want to open it up for question if anyone has any question on the topic.
So there's no questions yet, but hopefully some will come in. But I will use this opportunity to highlight some awesome Raptor family tree merchandise that we have at Hawk Mountain. You might be admiring my shirt right now. So it really caught my attention working in the education department when JF shared with the staff at Hawk Mountain this new publication modifying the definition of a raptor. And of course, for the education team, we wanted to have a way to share this with the public during our education programs. And we thought, well, what's an inclusive way to share this with the general public, regardless of age, religious beliefs, or what have you. And so we really like the concept of depicting this modified definition of a raptor using a raptor family tree. And yes, kudos to our science outreach coordinator, Rebecca Smith, for designing it. So we have these awesome shirts. I'm gonna share my screen for a second. So you can see, I'm actually wearing it backwards, so you can see what it looks like in real life on the back. So all of our viewers today are getting a special discount if you would like to purchase this, 25% off. The promo code is Raptor, all in capital letters. So you can shop online at our bookstore. You can go just on our website, and up at the top right tab, there's a little shop icon. You can click on that and use the promo code Raptor. Or you could call our bookstore and just say that you were a viewer on this webinar, and you have to enthusiastically shout Raptor into the phone to get your 25% discount. We also have a short sleeve. So the front looks like this with our logo, and the back has the Raptor family tree. And we have also some awesome Raptor family tree decals or stickers. All right, we have a bunch of questions coming in. So thank you everyone for listening to our Raptor family tree merchandise. So let's get to the questions.
Well, I can't see them, so I'm gonna reply to one of them right away. Question from Silas. Thanks for asking, man. The difference between Old World and New World vultures is basically a geographical barrier. So everything in North, Central, and South America is called the New World, and everything else is the Old World. So the vulture species associated with those geographical ranges are what I'm talking about when I say New World vultures and Old World vultures. So obviously in here, Pennsylvania, New World vultures, you know, the classic turkey vultures, black vultures, and if you go south, you get the yellow-headed vulture, the Andean condor, the king vulture, California condor. So there are several species here in the New World. The different morphologies of hawks. Well, now what I presented here are the main different groups or orders of raptors. They all have characteristics that are proper to that group, and even among groups, species have adapted to take advantage of a specific niche in any ecosystem. So you have species that have broad range, they occur in very different, diverse habitat, whereas you have other species that are very picky about where they live. So this affects a lot their morphology. You have stronger feet if you need stronger feet. to survive. If your prey fight a lot, if you're targeting smaller prey, well, it's going to affect your morphology. It's going to affect also all the things that make you or make that species a given species. So I cannot go into the details of all the species, but every one of those species has something different than another one, and they all have those adaptation for different niche, ecological niche.
Awesome. JF, would you like me to read the questions out loud? Because you're doing.
I'm trying to read them at the same time as I'm replying, but go ahead if you have one.
Could you talk a little more about the ecology of raptors and of the 5 groups, which is the most numerous?
So the group containing the most species is the accipitriform. There are lots of species that we're familiar with. All the species that are here in Pennsylvania passing over the lookout, most of them are from that group. Obviously, they're not, that doesn't include falcons, but includes hawks, eagles, osprey, harrier, and the like. So there are a lot of species from the accipitriform. Owl species are quite numerous as well. There are lots of owl species. In here in North America, we have 19, if I'm right. Obviously, I might be off one species, but I think I'm pretty confident with 19. But there are over 200, I think, owl species over around the world. So there are a lot of diversity because owls have adapted to specific niche in it's mostly to be active at night.
Thanks, JF. We have so many awesome questions coming in, and here's one from Sam, who is 8 years old. Sam would like to know, JF, what is your favorite raptor and why?
Thanks, Sam. That's a very good and hard question. I never can answer that one very easily because they're so cool. Every species has something great about it. Obviously, I've been doing a lot of work with one of my favorite, which is the snowy owl. I've been working a long time with studying the behavior and ecology of snowy owl. But right now we're doing a project on American kestrel, and I love American kestrel. They're just great. So it's a very hard question. I would like you to tell me if you want to chat, but what is your favorite raptor species?
Sam, we want to know your answer. Okay, here's another question from Joy. Are the terms raptor and bird of prey interchangeable?
Yeah, very good question. I think I went too quick on that aspect, but yes, those two expressions mean the same thing. Right now, we're considering raptors or birds of prey as being the same expression, the same group of birds.
And by the way, Sam's favorite raptor is a northern goshawk.
Ooh, they're cool. Yeah.
Good fun. The gray ghosts. Okay. Are raptors on every continent other than Antarctica?
Yes. Yeah. Quick answer is yes. Yeah. Short answer, yes.
Okay. So many good questions. JF, are kites raptors?
Yes, it's a pure yes. They're accipitriform, just like the other one, the hawk, eagles, and ospreys. They're in the same group.
Okay, we have a question from Kieran, who's 4 years old. Why do raptor dinosaurs have the same name as raptor birds?
That's a very good question, and I don't want to say something that is not right. So I'm going to need more time to do that research. I think they have, they could be using the fact that the Latin equivalent of rapt, meaning to size, might have been used to different groups. Even though they're not necessarily related, but that's where I'm going to stop because I don't want to say something that's not that's not right.
Okay, that's a good answer. I was thinking the same thing too. Okay, here is a question from Elizabeth. Also, I know songbirds use different songs to communicate different things. Do hawks and raptors have different calls?
Very good question. Hawks and raptors have a bunch of different calls. If you spend time, if you're lucky enough to have raptors hanging out near you in your backyard or somewhere else, if you spend time, you'll hear them, you'll get familiar with them. The more interesting to me, the most interested part is when you have a nesting pair and you can hear all the different calls that they make, whether they're excited or they feel threatened, they see a dog coming in, they see something out of place, they have a different call than when they have food and they want to deliver to the chicks. They're calling not the same way. So you see all those different calls happening if you're lucky enough to spend time with raptors.
JF, can you do a raptor call impersonation right now?
I wouldn't go that way. I mean, that's a slippery slope. I don't.
It's a slippery slope. Okay, here's a question I love from Donna. What can we do to provide a supportive environment for raptors?
Very good question. The first answer I always like the first thing I like to answer to that question is to learn more about those species. The first step is to know what are those species depending on. If you are targeting a specific species, which is all great, but if you learn more about the species, you'll learn exactly what they need. Usually it's pretty simple. They need a kitchen to feed and they need a bedroom to reproduce. So if one of the two is not available, they're not going to be around. So I'm thinking the American kestrel, they're cavity nesters. If you study, just learn a little bit about American kestrel, you learn right away they're nesting in cavities. So they need a cavity to breed and nest. So providing a nest box is a great way to enhance kestrel habitat. Other species have different requirements, and then the more you learn about a species, the more you'll see right away what needs to be done.
Thanks, JF. And somewhat related, we have another question. Does climate change affect raptors? And I would like to just say, I believe, JF, you actually did a whole fall lecture series on this last fall, which was recorded. It was also a simultaneous live webinar, and that recording should be totally free and accessible on our YouTube channel. But I'll let you answer.
I'll go quickly. Yes, Patricia, thanks for your question. Climate change is affecting raptors in all sorts of ways. So I don't want to get too into the details, but the fact that they are at the top of food webs, they're integrating whatever's in the food web. So if something affects some species in the food web, they're going to be affected by it. So obviously they are. Their migration pattern is changing. The path they use, the timing of migration is changing. The timing of reproduction is changing. The clutch size are affected, and the list goes on. So yes, they are. And thank you for your question.
Yes, and a follow-up comment that's really important to share from one of our viewers. Debbie, thank you for bringing this up. Just another comment to how can we have a supportive environment for raptors is so important not to use rodenticides or insecticides, because then by doing that, you're actually poisoning the food source of the raptors, and those poisons build up and are quite fatal to the raptors. And also, I don't know if you mentioned this, JF, because I was busy typing to some of the answers, but also if you're a hunter, to please use
non-lead ammunition.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. So when does a morphology become a new species?
That's a very good question. A species is defined as those traits or those individual from a species that can reproduce together. So when they diverge too much, that their genes are not compatible anymore, they don't produce live or successful chicks, and they don't recruit in the population. This is where you see the division in species. So this is how it takes time. It takes a lot of years, but this is how evolution works to what we call speciation.
Thank you, JF. Here's an interesting question. Do all raptors at times eat carrion, which is also another word for dead animal or carcass?
A lot of raptors will eat carrion, and some of them only for times of the year. So in the wintertime, just as like right now, some species have a harder time to find live prey, and they would rely on carrion and dead animals. Some other species will never touch a dead animal, or even with the presence of a dead thing, they would not go for it. So it depends. It depends on individual as well. Some of them turn to scavenging dead animals quite fast when there's a diminution in resources. Some of them will try their best not to go that route, but it's a lot of species do it at times.
There's no shame in a free meal, right? You don't have to expend calories. It's just
sometimes it's survival that kicks in, and you want to make it through winter.
Yes, yes. Even our noble national symbol, the bald eagle. Okay, we have, speaking of scavengers, here's a vulture question. Does the fact that vultures feed in groups factor into them being a raptor or not?
Now, that was not really used for assessing if they're raptors or not. The vultures, the main reason for vultures was their ancestors, the lineage, the relatedness of vultures to the other raptor species, and the fact that they have the diet and the curved beak and all, but the fact that the group size didn't affect the decision at all.
Thanks, Jeff. Okay, we have a question from Foster, who is 5 years old. Why do all raptors have keen eyes? And are they really similar to dinosaurs?
That's an open question, but birds in general are actually the descent from dinosaur. They're the ancestor way back might have been dinosaurs. Most raptors have good eyesight. They can see a lot, but like I said before, it's on a species specific thing. Some species have adapted to be able to detect things kilometers away, while others, they prey at short distance through thickets, and they don't need the long range. Some others, owls, use their hearing, but their eyesight as well at night, but it's a very different one than a vulture circling at 4 kilometers up in the sky looking down, than an owl in almost dark, complete darkness, trying to spot something at close range, but in very dark settings. So they all have different qualities for their eyes that makes them capable and successful at what they do.
Thanks, JF. And there's been one of the earlier questions. Someone's been waiting patiently for this response. They noticed the spotting scope, I guess, behind you, JF. Any thoughts or recommendations on selecting one to purchase?
I would say there's a lot of different models. Obviously, it depends on how or what usage you're going to do with it. You want to hike with it. In that case, you're not going to want to have a heavier one. If you're going to be sitting using your car, and it's important for you to have super power, high quality, well, that's going to change a lot. The price range goes with it as well. There's a huge range, and there's a lot of comments on this. I think if you click or type on Google, on a forum, or you're going to find a lot of information, the pros and cons of which model. And so depending on what kind of birding you want to do, that's going to be affecting your choice.
Good answer. All right. And we have a personal question for Dr. Therrien from Annette. What made you come to Pennsylvania from Canada to study raptors? She says that her mother is from Prince Edward Island.
PEI. All right. Well, I grew up in Quebec. Obviously, you might have heard my French accent. I came to Pennsylvania during my bachelor degree as an intern. I was here a long time ago. I'm not going to say the year. As an intern, and learn about raptor migration and raptor studies as an undergrad. And right away, I thought, oh, this is very interesting. So I went back to school and finished a master and PhD. And when I was finishing it up, I was still in touch with Hawk Mountain. They were looking for a scientist, and it was an easy choice for me to come to Pennsylvania.
Well, we're so glad you're here. Okay, we have 2 questions related to vision, so I'm going to do a combo. So one person is asking, do raptors see in color? And then the other question is the visual acuity different in each eye?
Oh, interesting. I think that's a very good question. I don't know if it differs between the 2 eyes, but I'm pretty confident that it differs between species. So some species can see very well in different settings, whereas some other species would not be able to do in, like I say, complete darkness or very long distance or all those different situations. But yes, they do see in color, they have the same cones and sticks that we have. It's the ratios of them that are different.
Thank you. JF, is it true that hawks mate for life?
That's a good question. I don't want to, touch some sensitivity, but they do, some of them might stay together in pairs for life, but a lot of species actually have a turnover. So if one of the two of the pair disperse or get killed or being displaced by a more dominant individual, there's a lot of those change every year or so. Some species are more faithful to partners than others. It depends on their ecology and behavior, but they don't necessarily mate for life, no.
All right, thank you. What is the mortality rate of first-year raptors?
Very good question. We are increasing our research into that very specific aspects of life history of raptors, because we expect survival rate to be quite low for first-year raptors. They have a lot to learn. The challenge are numerous. The learning curve is steep. When you all of a sudden you are not fed by your parents anymore, you need to fend for yourself. You need to defend a territory. The items, the resources that you want to eat are not easy to. It's not grass that you can just chew. You need to go and grab a mouse, a frog, a fish somewhere. Those are not easy to catch. So there's a steep learning curve, and survival rate is quite low. Depending on species, it varies from species to species, but it's usually quite low.
Okay, JF, we have 2 snowy owl questions. I know you're excited because you love snowy owls. Okay, the first question, the snowy owl in Central Park is the first owl there in a long time. Why do you think it is there and by itself? Could it be hurt or looking for food? And then the second snowy owl question is, JF, are you following any particular snowy owls at the moment?
Thank you so much for your question. Yes, I'm always, it turns out we always have snowy owls. People are reporting snowy owls to us, and we have tracked snowy owls as well, that we use tiny transmitters just like this one that we put on the back of the birds, and that actually reports the location of the birds in real time. So we've been tracking over 100 snowy owls over the last 12 years from all places across their range. So we've been very busy. We're tracking them right now. If anyone's interested and want to see the updates, we have a website called projectsnowstorm.org. If you can't, or if you don't remember, you can just drop me an email and I'll send it to you. But basically, we have a bunch of owls that we try tracking right now. We're looking at where they go and how they're doing. And the one in Central Park, well, this winter was we were expecting to see some snowy owls come in down here, Pennsylvania or New York or across New England this winter, because we expected a winter eruptions. Snowy owls erupt some winters, usually once every 4 years, and that's caused because reproduction up in the north is very successful, and all those chicks that were produced last summer are looking for a place to go. Some of them ended up at our latitudes. Now, New York is not the typical place you would think of, but if an owl actually comes, follow the coast, or follow the Hudson River, for some reason ends up nearby, well, the one place I would go, whenever I go to New York, I go to Central Park myself too, because it's too busy anyway. But an owl there would probably see Central Park as the safest place around before moving on. So I was obviously aware and surprised and excited to see this. It probably wasn't hurt. It was just it flew overnight and then was looking for a place away from taxis and skyscrapers, but and ended up in Central Park. But I think it moved on as of now.
Thank you, JF. And man, the questions keep coming in and they're all so good. So this is related to the snowy owls. Have you done any talks for students about your findings from the snowy owl tracking project? And before you answer that, JF, I would like to share that we did a Homeschool Happenings program, was this December? JF, you were part of it. And so was Scott Weidensaw. And I do remember Scott sharing the tracking devices and saying, I get text messages from snowy owls. How cool is that? So that was in December. JF, I don't know if you have others to share.
I've done a lot of talks, yes, because snowy owls are a charismatic species, and school kids like to hear about snowies, obviously because of some popular movie, but other things, just the ecology and the look of the species. So yes, I've done a lot of those, both here and in Canada as well.
All right, more raptor questions. Do raptors return to the same nest each year?
Very good question. Depends on the species and depends on the individual. Some of them go back almost every year and some of them don't. The snowy owl being at the extreme end of the continuum, never go back to the same spot, never go back 2 years in a row at the same location. They go kilometers, hundreds of kilometers apart. On the opposite end, peregrine falcon, they go back to the same place almost every year. So you have all those in between, some species tending to go back or knowing a few alternative nest sites, but tend to go back, and some that never go back ever twice in a row.
And some that like to steal the nest that another creature made, right? So, and I want to just mention that next Wednesday, we have a homeschool happening program. It's called Nesting Now. Anything you ever want to know about nests, we're going to learn. And we have a lot of cool interactive activities. JF, is there a best time of the day to observe raptors?
Well, if you want to learn or observe owls, it would be at night, at dawn, or even at dusk. Those are a great time for this. Dino raptors, if you want to, anyone welcome to come to Hawk Mountain. Migration in the fall or in the spring, usually the busiest hours are between 10 and 3 or 10 and 4. You still have a few that are coming in early on, but usually midday is a great time to look for raptors. So there's, I mean, it could go for any very various time of day.
Cool, thanks. That's nice to know you don't have to get up early. Have you found that noise pollution is having an adverse effect on raptors, specifically owls, and their ability to communicate with each other? Great question.
Very good question. I don't recall a recent study on this, so I don't want to say, what I'm going to say here is not supported necessarily by any study. I'm just thinking, I've seen a lot of owls and raptors in general, actually, being able to adapt and nest in very close proximity to loud places. At the same time, it seems like there are individuals that prefer very quiet neighborhood or regions, and they would not nest close to a very busy airport or route or an interstate highway. So it's like humans. Some of them are fine in big cities. Some of them prefer the quiet, of the woods and those kind of things. So we see that in species. I think owls, especially if the question was for owls, they have a specific song and they make those calls that are nothing's like that. So they can still hear each other because it's that specific call that no one else makes that sound.
Thanks, JF. And we have a question from Kieran, who's 4 years old. How do birds fly?
That's a great question, and that's probably worth another Zoom meeting just to talk about it. The way the air layer goes with the wing. But basically, if your parents are with you and you want to see, there are cool videos on the web, Google or YouTube, how the planes have mimicked and copied birds in how to actually get some lift and thrust from the shape of the wings. So the shape of the wings of a plane are mimicking bird wings. So basically, just quickly, but because the air that goes above has longer to travel, it kind of sucks the bird up, and so that up pressure helps the bird to stay aloft. So that's a very condensed lecture on how do bird fly.
Thank you, JF, and great question, Kieran. That was all of our questions. That is the most questions we've had for any webinar. So JF, you did a fantastic job answering them. Thank you. Thank you to our wonderful audience, not only for your amazing questions, your interest, and just for sharing time with us here this evening. It really means a lot to us. And thank you for your interest in Raptors. And JF, again, great presentation. I am thrilled to share with the world the new modified definition of what is a Raptor. And don't forget our awesome merchandise in the bookstore. And if I didn't mention it earlier, the 25% discount for webinar viewers exclusive is good until this Sunday, Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day. Remember, the promo code is Raptor, all uppercase. Oh my goodness, I see a few more things coming in. Oh, there's thank yous. Okay, I just would like to share a few of our upcoming events we have at Hawk Mountain. As you probably know, we are open every day. Our visitor center is open. Our trails are open. We have lots of programs. Definitely check out our website for modifications for safety with the coronavirus. So we have our Winter Artisan Series in collaboration with the Arts Barn, which is every weekend through the end of March. We have very interesting workshops with local artists. And this weekend we have coffee painting workshop with David Hughes, which is always very popular. So that's this Saturday at 1. And as I mentioned earlier, this coming Wednesday, the 17th, we have Homeschool Happenings Nesting Now, and that's at 10. Then the following Saturday, on the 20th, we have another Winter Artisan Series, Japanese Stab Binding. Also, on the 18th, which I believe is a Thursday, we're collaborating with the John Muir Laws, who is an artist who does really wonderful art webinars, and it's how to draw a raptor, and some of our Hawk Mountain Raptor ambassadors are going to be there, and that's at 3. We have Sanctuary Storytime on the 25th at 11, and the story is The Mitten, which is a classic. And our next stay-at-home speaker series is on Thursday, March 4th at 7 p.m. with Dr. Diane Husick. And it is bloom times, bud bursts, bird migration, and bugs. What are these events telling us? So that's sure to be a good one. Oh, and we have Scout Day on the 21st. The 21st of January, which is a Sunday. All Scouts come to Hawk Mountain, wear your uniform, get half off trail admission, and we're having a meet and greet with a very special feathered educator for our Scouts in the visitor center on February 21st. So we want to see you there. So thank you everyone for joining us. We are so glad, and we hope to see you soon. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Thank you.
Thank
Bye
you.
for now.